There's no better feeling in Football Manager than having a team full of wonderkids. When we load up a new save, the first thing that we all do is look to see how many 5-star potential players you've got in your youth team, as well as getting straight on to the scout report to see what hidden gems you can find and sign for your team. Wonderkids are usually pretty hard to come by though, on the grounds that they usually get hoovered up by teams like PSG and Man City who just pay them stupid wages that no one else can afford. But what if I told you there was an easy way to get some wonderkids that didn't cost you any money at all? And all you need to do is just make one addition to your backroom staff. Today's video is all about what I think is the most underrated staff member in all of Football Manager, and that is the head of youth development. I genuinely think if you know what you're looking for in a head of youth development and you get not even like a great one, just an above average one, then you will get golden generation after golden generation at your club. How do I know this? Well, it's what I've been doing in my Save for Lincoln Loco 3, which has just finished actually, but it's what I've been doing in there for 15 seasons, and we had golden generation after golden generation. Before we get into the bulk of today's video, just want to let you guys know about today's sponsor, the OneFootball app. OneFootball is the best football app out there to keep up to date with all of the news from around the world and latest scores from the games that matter to you. Follow your favourite teams and get push notifications sent straight through to your phone whenever anything important happens in the game, quicker than any other app out there. You can download the app for absolutely free from the top line of the description, and if you do so, it massively helps me out. So would love it if you could do that for me, and let's get on with today's video. Just to show you some credentials, one of the first great players that came through was this guy called Anthony Ward. He since went on to play for Valencia and Lille and ended up doing very well at both of those clubs. But he came through our youth system and was a wonder kid and is really, really solid. One of the best wonder kids we had in the game. We had another great striker come through called JD Meakin. He was superb physically, scored plenty of goals with 16 finishing and was a really solid player before moving. I think we sold him to Bayer Leverkusen £15 million and then RB Leipzig took him off their hands for £30 million. Currently, we have this guy called Tyson Brown. He's an 18-year-old wonder kid with 16 first touch, 15 passing, 17 technique, 17 vision, 17 work rate, 17 decisions. He's quality. The pièce de résistance is Paulo Turner. He doesn't quite look so good technically, but his physicals are insane. He's got really good mentals as well, and he's only 20 years old and will still continue to get better. And the youth intake that we've just had was actually pretty decent as well. We are one of the best teams in La Liga, which makes us one of the best teams in the world. And we've got a 5-star player and 4 4-star players as well. If they all reach their potential, they could all be world-class players. So we have really good youth intakes with not great facilities, actually, if I'm honest with you. Our reputation as well is not particularly great, although we have had a quick rise to the top. Our reputation hasn't really kept up with us, so we are quite far below reputation of teams like Barcelona or Real Madrid or Valencia in our division as well. But the success is all down to this guy, our current head of youth development, who, for the most part, isn't actually like a world-class head of youth development, at least in my books. So I'm going to show you how I pick my head of youth development and how you guys can do it too to get better golden generations for your club. So where do we start? Well, it would be obvious to start with attributes. Wrong. You do not start at attributes. Attributes are actually the last thing that I look at. The first thing that I look at is the personality. For me, I really genuinely think that personality is the biggest driver of development in Football Manager. And it kind of makes sense. You know, think of your Messis, your Ronaldos, your Mbappes, your Haalands. They're all perfectionists, they're all professional, they're all really determined. They have great personalities for developing themselves when it comes to football. So for me, it just makes complete sense for my head of youth development to have a great personality to pass on to the young players coming through. This head of youth development's personality is only fairly determined, which is decent, but it could be a lot better. It could be professional, it could be a model citizen, it could be a perfectionist. So you can find much better personalities. This guy's personality is above average, and yet we still get great players coming through. The head of youth development, he goes out and he looks for players with a similar personality to him. So if your head of youth development has a good personality, he'll find players with good personalities who are more likely to develop better and further than players with rubbish personalities. So I feel like I've said personality far too many times in the past minute or so. We won't go too much further into it. However, if you do want me to do a much more in-depth video on personalities, make sure you do drop a like on the video and leave a comment down below. So if personality is the top tier trait I'm looking for in a personality, the second tier is nationality, scouting knowledge, and reputation. So Football Manager has a system built into the game when it comes to youth development known as youth ratings. Every single nation in the game has a youth rating out of 200. And as you would expect, the best international teams like your Brazils, your Spains, your Frances have the highest youth ratings, and your teams like Vanuatu have the lowest youth ratings. That means that the best players and the best regens are likely to come from the nations with the best youth ratings. Your Brazils, your Spains, your Frances, your Germanys, etc, etc. So what you want is to have a head of youth development who is from one of those countries with a great youth rating. So Javi Perez is Spanish, which is great. He comes from Spain, which has a very high youth rating. And what that means is the players he brings in, because they're from Spain, are more likely to be better than players from Belarus, for example. Nationality then gets coupled up with scouting knowledge. So Javi Perez, for example, he's Spanish, and apparently he knows everything about Spain, but nothing about anywhere else. What would be good is to have a head of youth development who's also got full scouting knowledge of Brazil, because then he can go to Brazil and bring some young players there. So the wider the scouting knowledge is as well, the wider the pool of players that come to you as well. And ideally you want them from great countries as well, so then you get even better players coming through. It all kind of interlinks. And then to top off the second tier of things that I look for in a head of youth development is reputation. The higher the reputation, the more well-known that person is. And the more well-known that person is, the more likely he is to bring someone to your club. Think about real life, for example. If David Beckham comes to you and says, come play for my club, and then Matt Reed comes to you and says, come play for my club, who do you go to? I mean, for me, it's a trick question because I love Matt Reed, so I'd go with Matt Reed, but ordinarily, you'd probably go for David Beckham, right? So the higher the reputation your head of youth development has, the more likely you are to get better players coming in as well. So that is the second tier of things that I look for in a head of youth development. The third tier is the tactical style and preferred formation. This one is a bit of a given. It's likely that you have implemented a style of play at the team you're at, so it just makes sense to have your head of youth development mirror your style of play, so he brings players through to fit that system. Personally, I like to play a bit of tiki-taka wing style hybrid stuff. So I'm looking for players with great passing, great crossing, great dribbling. And this guy matches that perfectly. He plays the same formation as me, and he also goes for wing play and gets players with good crossing, good dribbling, good passing, everything that I want in a player. It would be completely counterproductive of me to bring in someone who likes Route 1 football and a 4-4-2 diamond, because I have no wingers, no wide players, and no one who likes to pass the ball. So now that we've looked at personality, now that we've looked at nationality, scouting knowledge and reputation, and now that we've looked at tactical style and preferred formation, now and only now do we start looking at the attributes. When it comes to the coaching side of attributes, the only one highlighted is working with youngsters. Now obviously, working with youngsters is a great one to have. The higher that number is, the better they are at working with youngsters. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? But a little unknown fact of the head of youth development is that they're also coaching. They're coaching the young players as well. So it's very important to have really good coaching attributes as well, particularly I feel when it comes to mentals. This guy's got 20 mentals, which is great. I like to have players with good mentals. Maybe you guys are slightly different. Maybe you've got a different philosophy when it comes to having a good player or what makes a good player. For me, I always think really good mentals are something to have in a player. So I love having great mental coaching in my coaches. When it comes to the mental attributes, I think motivating and determination are the most important ones. I think it certainly helps with pushing the young players in training. I think it certainly helps with getting their personalities better as well. Ideally, I'd like a much better level of discipline, but obviously you can't quite have everything. And I'd also like much better adaptability for him to go around the world and scout more players and get more players in for the youth development. But of course, you can't quite have everything. And of course, when it comes to knowledge as well, you want to have good judging player ability and potential for very obvious reasons. Obviously, there are some other things that factor into getting a great youth intake. You've got your reputation, you've got your facilities, you've got the junior coaching and the youth recruitment. But for me, the biggest piece of the jigsaw puzzle is something you have complete control over, and that is the head of youth development. So to very quickly recap, look for the very best mix of personality first and then nationality, scouting knowledge and reputation. Then have a look at the tactical styles and preferred formations before finally then looking at the attributes. Don't worry about attributes too much because of course you can sign youth coaches who can make up for the lack of attributes that your head of youth development may have. So let me know in the comment section down below if this video has helped you out, and of course if you're going to be signing a new head of youth development for your team, and if you do sign a new one, let me know about all the golden generations that start to come for your team. Thanks very much for watching. Make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and I will see you next time. Have a good one. Goodbye.